You know, we use money every single day. But have you ever stopped to ask what it really is? I mean, is it just paper, a number that flashes on a screen? Or could it be something more solid? Today, we're diving into a pretty radical idea, one that challenges the very foundation of the money we use. So let me ask you this. What if your savings, your salary, even the price of your morning coffee was totally and completely shielded from inflation? I don't just mean resistant to it. I mean, what if it was genuinely inflation-proof? It's a huge question, and it's right at the heart of what we're talking about. Okay, so to really get what's being proposed here, you gotta understand that there are basically two kinds of money. On one side, you have what's called a fiat money. That's your dollars, your euros, you name it. Its value comes from one thing. A government says it has value. The whole system is built on trust. But on the other side, you have commodity money. Its value comes from the thing itself. Think about it like salt in ancient Rome, or for our story today, gold. And this leads us directly to the core proposal, the gold dinar. The big idea is to create one unified currency for Muslim nations that isn't based on a government's promise, but is actually backed by physical, hold-it-in-your-hand gold. So what exactly is this Islamic gold dinar? Well, it's a proposed currency based on a real commodity, and it's been championed by some pretty big names, like the former Malaysian Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. The endgame? To create a kind of financial unity and independence for the Muslim world. But why do this? Well, the reasons actually go way beyond just economics. First, there's a religious reason. Supporters argue it's a return to the kind of currency used during the time of the Prophet. Second, it's a search for stability. A currency tied directly to gold is seen as a natural shield against inflation. And third, it's a practical goal. A common currency could just supercharge trade and cooperation between all of these nations. Now, this chart, this lays out the difference perfectly. Look at our current fiat system. Value is just a government decree. The supply, well, it's controlled by central banks, which makes it vulnerable to inflation from, printing more money. The gold dinar model is the total opposite. Its value is right there in the metal. The supply is limited by how much gold can be physically mined, so it's naturally resistant to inflation. And here's the ticker. The whole point is to be independent from the US dollar in global trade. Okay, but as you can probably imagine, an idea this massive, this disruptive, it faces some incredible challenges. So now we've hit the reality check. We're talking about 4 towering hurdles where this theory crashes right into the real world of modern finance. And believe me, these roadblocks are monumental. First up, you've got international law. The IMF has rules that pretty much stop countries from pegging their currency to gold. Second, you have the massive petrodollar system. Oil giants would have to stop pricing their oil in US dollars, a move that would cause a huge geopolitical storm. Third, there's a classic economic principle called Gresham's law. People would probably hoard the valuable gold coins and spend their paper money instead, which could grind the whole system to a halt. And finally, you have huge economic gaps between potential member nations, making a one-size-fits-all currency a real headache. So, you might think with all those roadblocks, the idea would just fizzle out, right? Well, not exactly. It didn't die, it evolved. Supporters are now looking at modern technology to try and solve some of these ancient, very physical problems. So instead of forcing everybody to carry around actual gold coins, 2 really interesting modern adaptations have popped up. On one side, you have something called bilateral settlement. This is where, say, Malaysia and Iran trade with each other and then just settle the final bill in gold, completely sidestepping the US dollar and the whole SWIFT system. Then on the other side, and this is where things get very 21st century, you have gold-backed tokens. Think of it as a digital currency where every single token is a direct claim on real physical gold sitting safely in a vault. All right, so we've covered the big ideas and the big problems. But let's get personal. What would life actually feel like in this kind of world? Let's try to imagine a day in the life. So let's picture it. We're going to follow a small business owner. Let's call him Omar. And for him, it's just a typical Tuesday in Cairo. Omar runs a cafe, and he needs to buy his coffee beans from a supplier in Indonesia. He pays his bill instantly using digital dinars. But the key here is what's not happening. He isn't stressing about exchange rates or whether the currency will suddenly drop. That little slice of his costs, that currency worry, it just disappears. Because the dinar is tied to a fixed weight of gold, the price of his beans has been stable for years. For Omar, inflation is basically a thing of the past. Okay, now let's jump halfway across the world to Kuala Lumpur. We've got an IT consultant named Amina. She just finished a big project for a company in Saudi Arabia.
and she gets paid instantly. And the fee for this international transaction? Zero. Nothing. That's because the payment is direct, from person to person, completely bypassing the whole network of banks in New York or London that would normally take their cut. So, in this world, what's in your wallet? Well, it could be one of two things. It might be an actual pouch of clinking metal coins, or, much more likely, it's just a simple, secure app on your phone. But let's stick with that physical-only world for just a second, because it's fascinating. It would create a totally different culture. Just imagine it. Every shopkeeper, every merchant has a super precise scale right there on the counter. Weighing your money would become just as normal as counting it. And this really gets to the heart of why the physical coin idea is so attractive to some people. It's about sovereignty. It's about total ownership. Your money is safe even if a bank goes under. It works if the power goes out. Every single transaction is completely private. And, there's a psychological thing too. Spending a piece of actual metal feels more real, which might even make people smarter with their money. Okay, but hold on. This raises a pretty obvious question, right? What about security? I mean, carrying your life savings around in your pocket sounds incredibly risky. Well, this is where modern tech could solve those ancient problems. Picture this: biometric wallets that only open with your fingerprint. Instant scanners in every shop that can verify the gold's purity in a split second. And maybe even a network of secure local vaults, like gold ATMs, so you only ever have to carry what you need for the day. At the end of the day, whether we're talking digital or physical, the biggest change here isn't even about the economics. It's psychological. It's the feeling of shifting from being just a passenger in this huge, complex global system to having a sense of direct control, of real sovereignty over your own wealth.
And that's what leaves us with the central question. Is the gold dinar a real blueprint for a future of stability, one that's free from the whims of central banks? Or is it just a romantic fantasy, an attempt to use an old solution for a world that has just become way too complex? That's the thought we're left to ponder.